marks even though they didn't deserve it. And this I'm going to say to you during the deliberation of the spring semester, because we have two semesters. One, the first semester of the last academic year, 2019-2020, the results in the first semester and the results of the second semester, there was a disparity to the extent that our department, we have decided, because for the second year, it's very critical because your mark decide for your choice of the department in the engineering cycle. And we have IT students and industrial students are always the first. So in the decision that was taken, when we see that disparity in the results between the first semester and all the teachers agreed that the spring semester was not included in the classification for choosing your specialty for your first year engineering. To sum up this presentation, the COVID pandemic changed the way of teaching, the way of assessment all over the world. This research aimed to examine the use of remote assessment participants and to examine also the participants' views about online assessment in terms of benefits and challenges. The system of e-exam is an important method of evaluation due to the flexibility of time and the types of questions. We cannot deny it. Though we were not familiar with that, but once we do our e-exam, especially in correcting the paper. However, students also report that they experience anxiety during remote assessment. They also showed that technology is worth using, but there are still some challenges. And the biggest challenge is the credibility of exam results due to online cheating. So the more effort should be done for developing softwares if we want to continue. We cannot deny the benefits of online distance in terms of cheating, in terms of teaching and learning, but for future perspectives, universities as well as schools of engineering have to develop their methods of assessment so as the credibility of our results remain clear and and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Now we will leave the questions till the end, I think. Now we move to Usama Da'aboul from Lebanon. From Lebanon, with the title of his presentation, The Effectiveness of Multiple Choices, Closed Questions and Paragraph Writing Exams on Students' Academic Performance. Usama Da'aboul is a teacher of English. He has a BA and a Master in English Language. The floor is yours, Usama. You can begin.
Okay. First of all,
أستاذة خديجة باقي 30 دقيقة. سادجة 30 دقيقة كالضة.
What is it?
She's saying that you will still have 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
Yes. Oh. I will try my best to make use of time. Please give me the permission to share my screen.
Yes, I have to close my... thank you. No. Yes. Yes, thank you very much. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I will start. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Just take a quick introduction. First of all, I need to thank Boston University for hosting this conference and my colleagues for the exchange of knowledge that we are going to have now. So it's no doubt that the recent COVID-19 pandemic has caused the biggest chaos recorded in the history of the education system. It affected nearly 1.6 billion students distributed around more than 190 countries worldwide and impacted around 94% of the world's students' population, and that is according to the UN report in 2020. Needless to say, this led to mandatory closures. Thus, the educational system had to shift from the conventional traditional classroom instruction to online and remote learning environment. This sudden shift to online learning and the need to adapt to the new synchronous and asynchronous strategies created several challenges. One of the challenges was the assessment and the type of assessment used with students. So met by challenges about the effectiveness of these types. The purpose of the research is to study the effectiveness of 3 types of online exams only: the multiple choices, the closed questions, and the paragraph writing on the students' academic performance and grammar and vocabulary. I have chosen only grammar and vocabulary, in addition to their perception toward the different types mentioned earlier. The research collected and analyzed data where students' scores in English, grammar, and vocabulary were compared after receiving the 3 types of exams. It also included a questionnaire answered by students themselves as well. Just to make something clear, the questionnaire was done live with the students, not online, because in the last 2 months or 6 weeks, we were back in schools and we were teaching the students in the school's premises. The targeted class was grade 8 students whose age range varies between 13 and 15. The total number of the students was 80. Only 60 were examined because the 20 of them were special needs students and were excluded. As we all know that special needs students are going to receive or usually receive different type of exams, and we cannot do the regular exams. They cannot do the regular exams. In order to collect data, an exam in vocabulary and the grammar was conducted using 3 different types: multiple choices, closed questions, and paragraph writing. How did we distribute the students? There were 3 groups, each of them with 20 students. I have chosen them according to their first semester academic year results, so they have the same level of achievement. Group A received multiple choices only. Group B received closed questions, and the Group C received paragraph writing questions. So just to make it clear, Group A are going to do grammar exam using multiple choices and the vocabulary exam using multiple choices, and so forth. The first result here, the first table that shows the vocabulary and the grammar average using the 3 different types of online exams, it indicates that students achieved the highest grade in vocabulary using multiple choices, 8/10. While for the grammar test, the result in the closed questions type were higher than the rest. The least average of the vocabulary exam was scored in closed question, and the result of the paragraph writing here is clear too. In comparison, we can see what we have discussed. As for the percentage of success and multiple choices, it was 90% for vocabulary, higher than the rest. And it was 95% for grammar and closed questions. And as usual, as it's seen, the paragraph writing got the minimum percentage of success. We are going to discuss at the end the results of these, the reason of these results. As for the questionnaire, the multiple choices students who received vocabulary and the grammar exams had these 4 or 5 questions. The type of exam made me recall the answers quickly. The multiple choices made me feel confused. I didn't feel stressed while doing the exam. I used the elimination technique, or I answered randomly. In front of us, we can see that regarding the vocabulary exam, more than half of the students agreed that the type of the exam they sat for had a positive effect on their recall, 60%, while it was the contrary in the grammar multiple choices. It was only 35%. Most of the students used elimination technique in the multiple choices, and they didn't answer randomly, while it was the opposite in the grammar choices. The next table was the result of the questionnaire related to closed question exams. Here I want to focus on the main question. I answered some of the question based on the words the teacher used in class because the rest of the questions are the same. With respect to the vocabulary exam, only 30% of the students answered depending on words used by the teacher. But when they did the grammar exam, 80% of the students answered depending on words used by the teacher. In the last table, the results of the paragraph writing, also the words used by the teacher were useful in the grammar part, but not useful in the vocabulary part. The analysis. The results show that students' achievement was higher in vocabulary using multiple choices. Now we'll discuss why. The most compelling explanation for the results related to the vocabulary test using multiple choice is that students had already practiced this type of exam starting from March 2019. So it passed like 12 months, a full year using multiple choices exams. We trained our students how to eliminate, how to choose the correct answer, how to identify the wrong answer. And according to Q and Hirschman, taking a test, which is multiple choices, generally improves students' performance on a later test. This is referred to as the testing effect. In addition, there were 3 choices given to the students, and that allowed them to use the elimination technique. It helped them find the correct answer rather than answering randomly. So if we have 3 choices, I train my students to eliminate the wrong one. With that, they have only 2 choices to choose from. So we have a 50-50% choices to answer correctly. A similar conclusion was reached by Ivana Pavlou, who claimed that students may choose the right answer without knowing the word just by the process of elimination. Not to forget that most students are capable of solving the multiple choices exam since it covers the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and that is according to Zimaro and Haladian. The implication of these findings are obvious, where students who were tested in vocabulary using multiple choices achieved the highest average and the highest percentage of success. As for the grammar, teacher often uses closed questions in their classes more than any type of other questions. So according to the Sadiq Ibn Saab in 2014, teachers usually ask simple and closed questions requiring recall rather than deep thinking, and that helps students in achieving a better grade. Questions asked by teachers can be lower cognitive questions, and the closed questions are easier and quicker for students to be answered and inspire fewer irrelevant and clouded answers. Most of the grammatical rules, especially tenses, are used by the teachers in class and are familiar to the students. That's why when they are asked direct and closed questions in the exam, it seemed familiar to them and they answered quickly. As for the final type of the online exam, which was writing, paragraph writing, it has the least average and the least percentage of success. The reasons: the complexity of a writing task where a student must employ more than one skill to work. When I'm doing a writing, I need to think about the lexes, about the grammar, about the word choice, about the construction, many tasks and the skills to apply. Students need time to generate ideas that can connect all the given words together, and that might have led them to consume more time. When you consume more time, you become more stressed. When you're more stressed, you will do mistakes. It is obvious that good writing relies on language ability. So students who suffer in terms of syntax would probably write poor vocabulary, strange and awkward phrases, inappropriate use of grammar, and wrong sentence structure. And we all know as teachers, when we evaluate a piece of writing, we set a frame of grading that includes all these parts. In addition, when having very limited knowledge in grammar, students might face anxiety to write sentences with correct grammar, and that is according to Muhammad Farid and in his research in 2016. The students have the habit to spell according to their pronunciation, and this will lead to wrong spelling as mentioned by Afrin in 2016. At the end, the limitation of the research was first, the researcher doubles as the teacher. I was the researcher and I'm the teacher of the class. And that was a little bit, that created a little bit of limitation because I could have been biased in a place or another. The second point, in the presence of online education, of course, students are being helped either by their teachers, either by their parents, either by their elder brothers. And as you have mentioned in the previous presentation, some students are using WhatsApp groups to transfer and move the answers from one group to another. And the last one, the influence of other factors such as the connectivity and electrical problems, which is very common in our country for our bad luck. In the end, the results seem to suggest that the teachers should consider assessing their students in vocabulary exam using multiple choices technique with the 3 variables only, and they close the questions in the grammar exam and try as much as possible to train students on paragraph writing because of its complexity. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation, and I hope that we have shared valuable knowledge.
Thank you, Mr. Usama Daboul, for your interesting presentation. And I see that the 3 presentation goes hand in hand, just sharing the experience from different countries. And yes, I hope the same results, etc. Now we move to the last.
Dr. Khadija, 25 minutes left.
25 left. Do we have a panel for questions? No?
No, no.
No. Now we move to the last speaker, Derek Korkmaz, with the title Examining the Effects of Explicit Teaching Form and Meaning Relation in Derivational Morphemes on Morphological Awareness of Young EFL Learners in Turkey. She is from the English teacher from the University Girumsan, Turkey. I want to say, but we don't, for time constraints, the floor is yours. You can begin. Dilek.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Salatri. First of all, I would like to thank... Oh, I have 15 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank all the participants here and dear Mr. Kadumi and all the stakeholders of this great conference. Today, I will talk about our study on examining the effects of explicit teaching of form and meaning relation in derivational morphemes on morphological awareness of young EFL learners in Turkey. I have to say that this is an ongoing study and the data, the collected data will be analyzed and will be shared with you as at the end of the conference. And also, I would like to thank dear my supervisor, Associated Professor Dr. Han from Ordu University. And I can go on.
Yes, so here we go.
Okay, now let's start with morphology. Morphology is interested in the structure of the words and meaning. It has some positive pedagogical involvement in both L1 and L2 instruction. Morphemes include suffixes, prefixes, and affixes. Derivational morphemes are one of them. And as for morphological awareness, it promotes reading comprehension and vocabulary skills. It also boosts reading skills for kindergarten students who have reading disabilities and for the students learning English. And several studies have found that learners focus on the form first, while some studies conclude that learners mostly focus on the meaning in a language. But a successful language learner focuses on both form and meaning according to Rod Ellis. And teaching of morphology Explicit teaching of morphology is one way of teaching of the morphology, and it may be effective in increasing the secondary school EFL students' morphological awareness and reading comprehension. However, it's more effective on morphological awareness rather than reading comprehension. And Badawi says that teaching of English morphology should be an essential part of the secondary school EFL curriculum. The literature review points to the fact that there are few studies on how explicit teaching of form and meaning relation in derivational morphemes affects young EFL learners' morphological awareness in Turkey. As for review of literature, there are 15 articles here. First one, Toft and Kogi's study on the facilitation for the pairs that are related semantically and have a safe initial orthographic subunit. Bandiorel's study on semantic differences. Kumert et al.'s study on effectiveness of form and meaning. Colin et al.'s study on Semitic morphemic entities in a word formation in Hebrew. It's a language in which there is no morphological order. Long and Williams' study on if there is a relation between implicit learning of grammatical form and meaning. Jarmulovic's and Tarrant's study on the effects of derivational morphology on language development. Valio's study on the fact of focusing on form to content-based language. Steve's study on how morphological-based vocabulary instruction contributes to the guessing the meanings of unknown words in a context, and Dodge's study on the facilitation effect of derivational roots to the meaning and the grammatical form of the speech, and Bowman's et al.'s study on the contribution of affixes to students' individual learning, Kumert et al.'s study on how morphological information affects learners' word recognition, Zosky and Ericsson's study on the effects of explicit teaching of a derivational morpheme ing in kindergarten, Chen's study on explicit instruction is Chen's study concludes that explicit instruction is superior to implicit instruction in teaching simple past tense, and Badawi's study on the effects of explicit morphological instruction on EFL students' morphological awareness and reading comprehension. And finally, Davidson and O'Connor's study on how raising ELL students' awareness of the structures of the words develops vocabulary knowledge, and how explicit morphological instruction contributes to inferring the meanings of unknown vocabularies. The next one, research questions of our study. First question is, does the explicit teaching of form and meaning relation in derivational morphemes contribute to third grader EFL learners' morphological awareness? Second question is there a relation between the explicit teaching of form and meaning relation in derivational morphemes and language aptitude for young EFL learners in grade 3? And third question is, how does the explicit teaching of form and meaning relation in derivational morphemes affect morphological awareness of young EFL learners? And next slide. Our method. First of all, let's start with the study design. And again, Anderson showed that the texts applied in grade 3 are composed of the words that contain 60% derivational morphemes. So, studying with the students in grade 3 for explicit teaching of form and meaning relation in derivational morphemes may be appropriate in this study. So we studied with third graders with derivational morphemes. There were two groups in our study, the experimental group and the control group. The experimental group had a 4-week implementation. And as a concrete and high frequency words are more suitable for young learners' vocabulary learning, according to the acquisition order, and why have been chosen for the explicit teaching in this study as derivational morphemes. These derivational morphemes are also recommended for teaching in grades 4, and a syllabus was prepared before the implementation for this study. Here is the basic procedure. We used 2 storybooks in our study, and the study started with pre-test storybook, highlighting the words, highlighting the jobs, highlighting the weather conditions. We use also song, a head song, an achievement test, a puzzle, and morpheme matching activity. And finally, we use post-test. After the post-test, we had some interviews with our participant students. Here is the syllabus. The first syllabus for the morphemes are here the jobs: firefighter, beekeeper, chef, police officer, football player, astronaut, and worker. And functions and useful language, language skills, contacts, tasks, and assignments, and evaluation was specified before the implementation for the students. And here is the other syllabus for the function describing the weather. What's the weather like? Windy, snowy, rainy, and sunny. Here are the words including the morpheme Y. Again, functions, useful language, language skills, contacts, task, assignments, and evaluation. The next one, instruments. As I said, we used 2 storybooks in our study. The first book is Whose Hat Is This? A look at hats workers wear hard, tall, and shiny by Sharon Katz Cooper. And the second storybook is One Snowy Night by M. Christina Butler. Data collection tools, we use pre and post test. Here is an example of our pre-test. And an observation process, we prepare and use an observation scale for this process. And finally, interviews. You can see the questions of interviews here. The interview questions are in the participant students L1 in their mother tongue. And reliability and validity for our study. The researcher of this study is also the teacher of the participant students. And we use a scale of observation in the process of observation and a syllabus of the teaching process. As you see, the learning outcomes and the necessary vocabularies, language skills was specified before the implementation. The interview questions were in the participant students L1 in Turkish, and 2 coders will analyze the collected data. The necessary information about these 2 coders were specified. The necessary information was given in our study, and the data collection contributed to the research questions and aim of the study. For triangulation, we use 3 different ways to collect the data: pre, post test, observation, and interview. And evaluation will be made according to the context and the setting of the participants. And here are the references for our study. And thank you for your interest and patience. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dilik.
Thank you, Mrs. Salatri.
Thank you for your interesting presentation. Thank you for respecting the time. Thank you, Mr. Usama. Thank you, Mr. Hassan. Thank you, Erim, for this interesting panel and for interesting talk about online assessment. And thank you and good luck. We don't have time for
Thank
questions.
you. Now we will show you the certificates of participation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Khadija Habbo.
Khadija Al-Atri.
Yes. Thank you.
Hassan Aghlam.
Can you send it to me in English? I am interested in English, not in Arabic.
Okay.
Can I contact you via email?
اوكي سأفعل ذلك. سأتحدث مع الدكتور ونبعثها لك بالإنجليزي.
Kadia.
Hatice ben.
Hatice.
Evet.
So sorry for that. Ya bir şey söyleyebilirim. Benim şimdi doktor öğretim görevlisi olacak. Yani gerçi problem değil ama küçük bir düzeltme yapılabilir mi diye sormak istiyorum.
Tamam. Hangi düzeltme?
Doktor öğretim görevlisi. Üyesi değil, doktor öğretim görevlisi.
Doktor öğretim.
Evet. Sadece üyesi kelimesi görevlisi olacak.
Ama hangi isim? Hasan mı?
Evet. Hasan Sağlamel. Evet.
Ne diyeceğim? Yazabilir misiniz chat'a?
Are you going to send it to us in our email? We receive it an e-copy in our emails. Dr. Hadiza.
نعم سنبعثها لكم عن طريق الإيميل دكتور.
إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله.
I will remind you أنا سأذكرك بأن ترسل لي باللغة الإنجليزية.
إن شاء الله إن شاء الله. تشرفت بمعرفتكم.
تشرفت أنا بمعرفتكم جميعا. إن شاء الله تشرفت.
خديجة.
Evet hocam.
خديجة. أنا أيضا بحاجة إلى الشهادة باللغة الإنجليزية وليس العربية.
أسامة دكتور ديما.
صحيح.
تمام.
شكرا لك.
العفو.
Bir şey sorabilir miyim?
Olur
Hediye
hocam.
Hanım. Benim çalışmamda Turgay hocam da var. Bildiride ismi yazılmamış programda ama onun için de bir katılım belgesi alabilir miyiz?
Turgay hocam.
Evet, yazabilirim.
Turgayhan.
Evet.
Zaten Turgayhan geçen oturum geldi, belgesini vardı.
Ha, okey, tamam. Teşekkür ederim.
Rica ederim. Doktor Hasan, doktor öğretmen diyorum, görevli nasıl oluyor?
Doktor öğretim görevlisi, evet.
Tamam, öğretim görevlisi Hasan sağlama.
Evet.
Yani üyesi değişecek.
Evet.
Tamam, teşekkürler. Şimdi İrem Nur.
The same official email that where you sent for us the link, everything, we can use it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
İrem Nur.
Hocam benim ismim de İrem Nur birleşik olarak yazılıyor.
Nasıl yazıyor?
Ben size chat box'a yazayım isterseniz.
Tamam. Tamam, değişeceğiz.
Teşekkür ederim.
Rica ederim. Osama doktor, siz İngilizce olarak istiyorsunuz değil mi? تريدونها بالإنجليزية.
أجل بالإنجليزية لو سمحتي. وكما قلت لك في الشات في النقاش أرجو عدم كتابة لقب دكتور قبل اسمي لأنني لم أحصل بعد على الشهادة.
طيب. Dilek Korkmaz hocam. Yani düzeltme yok size değil mi?
Hayır yok. Teşekkür ederim.
الاسم صحيح.
Teşekkür ediyorum.
Tamam, rica ederim. Thank you. Now, can you open the camera, please?
Yes. Everybody.
Okay, everybody.
We hope that next time we will meet in Turkey, inshallah.
İnşallah.
We hope.
We hope.
You can open the. Tamam, okay. Herkes mi? To take a group picture.
inshallah. Elhamdülillah الذي تتم بنعمته الصالحة.
Now you can open the camera.
Turgay hocam merhaba.
You are welcome in Morocco if in our school also. We have a beautiful city if you want. مرحبا بكم في مدينتنا في المغرب.
Thank you very much for this great invitation.
Yes.
Okay, aldım أخذت الصورة. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this event.
So, now we leave safely. Thank you very much.